Welcome to the Aditya Birla Group presents Working Across Generation Virtual Summit 2023. And we have with us now a very young, accomplished person who, while he joined his family business, has made it extremely expansive and vast right from a young age. And I'm very excited to share what he has to tell us about working across generations. So join me as I welcome Vishal Kamat, the director of Kamat Group of Hotels. And Vishal has had a very interesting journey. He joined his family business when he was pretty young, and in the last 17, 18 years, I could say we've all grown up. In my generation, when we grew up in Mumbai, there was a lot of Kamat hotels, and we would go to, there were these standard restaurants also that we had to go to if we went to Churchgate, which is where all the action was back in the day. And so the name has been pretty, how do I say, relevant, pretty familiar to many of us who've grown up in the city. And of course, it has grown far and wide since, and we will hear more about that journey from Vishal. So Vishal, welcome to the summit and thank you for making the time.
Namaskar, Vinny. Thank you for having me on your show. You've been very eloquent with your introduction. I'm not as worthy of what you said. I've been blessed with a great legacy and a lot of responsibility to take that forward. So thank you very much for that introduction.
Fantastic. So, Vishal, I thought before we even start with, with the context, it would be great if you could tell us what has your journey been like? How did you get into this? What was it like for you in your childhood? Did you go to the restaurants? Did you know what Kamats was all about growing up? Like, or did you just think it's your regular, dad's business?
So it's been a very unremarkable journey of mine into our family business, because just as especially the era of the time, it was assumed that you will ultimately join your family business. There was no question about it in terms of thoughts in our elders' mind. Today's parents, when I see my friends and all, they give a lot of bandwidth and a flexibility to their children to do what they want to do, and there's nothing good or bad about it. It's just the thought of today. But when I was much younger, and I was a child, that time the thought was key, we will enter our family business and take the legacy forward. Fortunately, I have been able to do that, and I have joined our family business. So my entry into our family business has not been very remarkable or interesting. It was an accepted or an expected thing. That said, the journey within the family business has been very, very interesting. As a family, we have been through a lot of ups and downs. We have seen a lot of good days and bad. And because of that, it has overall been a very, very interesting, very enriching experience. And I think going forward in the discussion, I will share many other things, aspects of that. Yes, from a young age, just as in any family business at that particular time, at a young age, the children would be exposed, me, my cousins, my siblings would be exposed to what is your family business, here in this case, restaurateuring, hospitality, catering, hotels. And from a young age, we would see what it is. And I think that's a very important aspect. If you don't see things when you're young, you won't really know whether you really like it or not, whether you fit into it or not, and whether you want to do that or not. And I think that is the main plus point I had. If today my parents would have done what many of my friends do and say, oh, you think what you want, I wouldn't even know what is our business to really know how superb it is to get into. So I would have lost out maybe, because I would have had a choice. And I'm grateful my parents didn't give me a choice. So thanks.
So then that means you've seen the business from very early on, right? When you were really young, until what you see today, even hospitality in essence, from the days when there were restaurants like Satkar and all of those things. And, you had Orchid that was opened in 97. I think you've seen actually a generational shift also in the way that the hospitality industry and most of the industries today have evolved. So I want you to tell us, how has the multi-generational workforce shifted or changed over the years, and how do you see it evolving further in the future?
So India is in a very unique position, and India actually has been in this very unique position right from around 2005, 2007. If you see our society has been evolving at different parts of the country at different times. Within that, like let's take the state of Maharashtra, okay, where predominantly you and I are from, and where predominantly we have a lot of business, though we have business in Orissa and Himachal and various other states, Goa. We are basically, while being a pan group, I'll give you an example of a state like, say, Maharashtra, where in 2005, 2008, you had only a couple of cities, which is mainly Mumbai, and then somewhat Pune, growing and having the benefits of certain modern aspects. A simple thing like an escalator, so people who are born and brought up in, say, Mumbai would know what's an escalator, but you'd have various people from the rural who'd come. And I'm not talking about extreme village, I'm talking about even a city like, say, Nasik, where many would not have seen a moving staircase, and they'd be shocked, and you'd find them falling, or you'd find them. And this is where you find that different parts of the country have evolved at different times, and that is something that is still happening today. The only difference is that at that time, digital wasn't as strong. And today, thanks to the medium of digital, whether it is TV, whether it's internet, whether it is mobile, we find a faster evolution in the various demographics as a whole. So you find youngsters able to earn money, able to aspire and have a better life, as compared to the parents who've not necessarily had that benefit of, this modern era that we are living in, and we're really lucky with. So this is where, we are all evolving at different phases of our lives, and that is still happening. We still have a large population of India who hasn't seen, forget, even an escalator. Just as I gave an example, even today, when you go to the airport, you're able to identify that one odd person who's flying first time, who will carry his bag into the security gate, and the security guy will shout at him, say, "Arey, udhar bag dalo." But that's what is beautiful about our country, that we still have a lot of people who are still coming in to a fold. And that is why there is no going to be a dearth of aspiration, at least for the next 10, 15 years that I see. So when we look at our workforce also, it's good that they're aspiring, because if they're aspiring, they will want to achieve something. Hence, they will want to achieve that. They need a salary, they need an income. So they will be working, unlike what we see in Europe, where slowly in Europe and America, their aspirations are going away. And because of that, you find, even though there are so many people, they have a shortage of people to work. In India, it is reverse. We have a shortage because there's so much more work to be done. And yet, after having 1.5 billion population, there is unfortunately a gap in the manpower required. So this diverse age group, this diverse background is something which is a huge challenge. But it should be, I take it as a positive challenge, that for every company like ours who employs thousands of people, and it's a HR challenge, which I don't think is as much of a problem as much as we being able to adapt and adjust to it and work towards it.
Okay, I think, yeah, that's an interesting perspective, that we are still evolving, and then there is a whole range of different people with aspirations in the country. So what I want to understand is, even within hospitality, if I think back to my experiences, right, whether it's growing up or even now, whether it was at a 5-star, whether it was at a restaurant, whether it was at, even a hotel, like at Orchid, whether it was wherever, whether it was in the city or in tier 2 cities, I feel that the experience of hospitality has started to become a little bit more relaxed compared to the way it was before. Everything was very tight back in the day. So I think if I went to one of those restaurants back in the day and I would ask them, kya hai, they would probably know all the 500 items on the menu, for example. But today, if you go to even the biggest of 5 stars and they may have 30 items on the menu, they are very lost about what they have on the menu. So I think similarly, what's the good that has evolved in this space, in the hospitality industry, also from a workforce perspective, and what are the things that have taken a slight compromise or a slight beating when it comes to the customer service experience that people give? Like back in the day, there was pride we used to sense. You went, even a waiter would treat you like it's his hotel, ye hai, ye kha lo, ye dekh liya. It was that vibe. From that to now, I'd like to understand from you, is that a generational systemic change, or do you think it's just brand related and otherwise largely the construct is intact?
So it's a very, very excellent observation that you've mentioned. Yes, there has been a deterioration in terms of what was old world versus what is new world, but there has also been a lot of improvements in terms of what was old world to a new world. The old world hospitality, when I as a child, when we go to the Oberoi or the Taj, which are, not were, are, as per me, the epitome of Indian hospitality. It doesn't matter how many foreign brands come and go, or they stay here or not. The ultimate for me will always be, for my own personal aspiration, is a Mr. Oberoi, and the Taj Group in a different sense altogether. There's an emotional attachment, and there is a Indian pride attachment, and there is also a learning attachment. We have all most of Indian hospitality today are grateful to the gurus, various gurus in various, whether it's restaurant, kitchen, front office, housekeeping, anywhere. All those gurus who've developed today's managers. So we have a lot to thank to these people as a fraternity, and that's why I respect Oberoi and Taj a lot. Also, I respect Oberoi a lot because at the end of the day, Oberoi is not interested in how many they have, but whatever they have, they're number one. And I think as a nation, whether you're in hospitality or in any industry you are in, it is how can you be number one? A Japanese person takes pride in whatever small thing he does, and that is a cultural thing which I think we need to imbibe in ourselves. That कम भी करोगे तो भी बढ़िया करोगे, कितना करोगे उससे कुछ मतलब नहीं बनता. So that said, what has happened is that, especially post corona, there is a huge dilution in what we would consider a five-star experience. There is a dilution from both the hospitality side, there is a dilution from the customer expectation side. A lot of the customers also don't necessarily want that very wound up experience, and if they do, they will still go to some place, which there are few places which still offer that kind. But by and large, life has also become more casual, life has become faster, so people have less patience. And within the hospitality also, there is a constant churn. So by the time you train someone, he's either moved on or he's been promoted. So the whole challenge in terms of what you have pointed out very nicely is that imbibing of certain aspects has changed into processing, and that is basically the major change we see. And I think that it's something for here to stay, and it will further evolve on. That is why every hospitality chain works towards, or at least that the Kamat's group, what we're working towards is making those processes more efficient while keeping our human touch element, but not necessarily having the old style of process and protocol to what we would call protocol is in the right word, that you have four. When we were young, and especially catering college, you would see this entire table down, and there would be like six spoons and forks, and on top of that one, so each one had to be taught, and then that was the thing, that which spoon to use where. And I think majority of people even today don't know how to have a fine dine. But do they really need to? Because fine dine itself has changed. You go to so many of these fancy restaurants, and the way that they serve you is a very upscale casual. So not necessary that today's audience needs to know it, because the restaurateur also, or the hotelier also, has evolved in his how he's providing that fine dine experience. So I guess it's a lot of again, interest in evolution. You as an individual, a viewer as an individual, wanting to know and say, hey, no, I really want to know how that side of the experience is, and I'd like to learn about that and go, then he will do it. Otherwise, it's not required.
Interesting. So, given that you have such a large workforce, which also obviously means while the churn rate is high or people are going to the next level, you might still have a workforce which spans all the generations, right? Because there'll be some absolute old-time loyalists, new people coming in. What are the benefits that you have experienced of having people from different generations? And the next question will follow with suit, but I want to still just keep you prepped for it. What are the challenges you have experienced in managing that, or also witnessed or heard of as challenges? So let's start with the benefits first.
So first, let's categorize broadly. Okay, you have very young people who have joined from say 20 to 25, maybe 28. Then you have mid-range people who are basically, let's say, in their 30s to their 45s, and then you have in the 45 and above. Okay, broadly three generations. One generation generally being around 15 years ka gap, you can say 15, 18 years. So that's how, if you say, now the three of them all have very different expectations and aspirations from their job. Okay, someone wants a job security because they're older, and someone who's younger is wanting excitement, and the one in the middle is figuring it out. Okay, what he wants to do, where is he? Okay, he's burnt his fingers over the past maybe 3 jobs. Now he's liking this company. What does he want to do ahead? So you have 3 different people broadly. Again, I'm just generalizing because it helps our conversation. An HR person has to make sure that the young people stay because they're engaged. The middle people are engaged through learning, and the older ones are given value, at the same time responsibility to groom the below two segments. Okay, experience can never be replaced with talent. Okay, experience is experience and talent is talent. And when you have a combination of both, that's where the person becomes a superstar in terms of our organization. He knows what it is, how to do it, but he has seen what are the plus, minus, pitfalls based on past experiences, what it is. And that's where the maturity and the dealing comes in. So if you look at these 3 broad things, we as a Kamat group, we value our older people, but the older people also we value as long as they also are. See, loyalty doesn't come by just sticking around. Loyalty comes by how you think about your organization. You might have worked in your organization for 30 years, but some new kid comes and says, "Kya kuch nahi yaar, 30 saal mera zindagi idhar hi nikala hai." Arey, rather than say, why did you stick around for 30 years? Oh, it's a great company to work. I have a great boss. Oh, I started off at the dishwasher. Now I become executive chef or I become general manager. Rather than say that journey, you discourage the youngster. That is not loyalty. That is just sticking around because you're probably incompetent or you are having insecurity about moving to another job. Comfort zone se bahar nahi jana. So not necessarily people who stick around are loyal. Okay. At the same, that's why we assess even the people who are older. What is their attitude? Because ultimately it is your attitude that matters, not necessarily only your aptitude. So your attitude of the older has to be positive to transfer it down to the middle and the lower. The youngsters you take have to have the attitude to learn, because if they have the attitude to learn, you can teach them the aptitude. And that's how you need an HR person needs to make sure. And the middle ones are basically the ones who you constantly groom, so that hopefully they will go into your upper bracket rather than move elsewhere. So you engage them because they should feel enriched. And that's how basically you have as an HR person to take care of these 3 broad buckets.
I think that's very interesting. And you actually answered a couple of questions I already had in mind as a follow on. But also very interesting perspective that not everyone who sticks around does it out of passion, energy, or loyalty. Sometimes it's just going with the flow and being secure and being settled. Something that very interesting crossed my mind when you were speaking was, and also perhaps maybe they would have had energy, some of them in the beginning, and may have become lackadaisical towards the end. But you don't want that part to be the influence for the new generations. You
That's
still
where the
want,
HR comes in. That's
yeah,
where the HR comes in. HR's job is to constantly give, injections of vitamins, energy through whatever the aspirations are. See, it's not about only doing a picnic.
right.
You can keep doing picnics and your team will not be motivated. You'll still lose good talent. Okay. You cannot only do training, because nobody just wants to join a school. They want a blend of entertainment and education, and their future aspiration bound by those 2 things. It's not about only see, if a person joins you and if he's become negative after 30 years, you also as a HR person, as management, need to introspect why that has happened. Okay, so it's not only about the employee. Do haath se taali nahi bajti. So it's just as the employee team member, same way the HR or the management or the whosoever it is, a karta of the family ho ya MD ho. It's whosoever, they have to constantly review. So if somebody is gone negative and he's stuck around for 30 years, you need to see also that why that has happened. Like I said, it could be because we haven't done justice also with that person. It could be that way also. So it needs to be seen holistically. There is never a black and white. Life is only about gray. It's never about black and white. So that's why I would not blame someone who's worked with you for a long time if it become negative. It's not whether he's wrong. It's about what the whole situation is and how did it happen that way. Because he never joined to be bad with you. He joined because he wants to be good with you, and he wanted good for himself. So we have to make sure that holistically you see the whole situation.
Interesting. So, Vishal, normally when there are larger challenges, they come to the fore, they get visible. But on a day-to-day interaction basis, there is always irritation, annoyance, dismissal. All of those things that happen between individuals. And largely it is like, I've been around, I know it all. Or your ways are too old, you need to like pick up speed, and you need to like, you're too particular, too rigid, and just be relaxed. There's always and like you said, the millennials are still figuring it out. So I think there is always this undercurrent sometimes in some people who could not necessarily be loud about it, but it's there. I want to know, what would your HR or you advise people on a regular basis, right? How can they work well with each other before it really becomes an issue that perhaps an HR needs to dive into? So what would be your recommendation for each of those generations? Like, what can they do to interact? How can they open up those channels of communication?
See, whether it is your home, in your personal life, in your friendship, or whether it is your profession, or whether it is your general, you know, whatever it may be, always the challenges which come are not from the big things, they are from the little things only. And it is up to each individual to pay attention to the little things. Even the best of friends will have a fight over the small matter, which becomes big. So it's not about addressing a problem. It's about making sure that overall, but this is also where a lot of individual personality comes in play, right? I mean, what can HR do after a point, or what can management do after a point, or what can anybody, a supervisor do, or even your junior do? It depends on how you as an individual also address yourself and your colleagues. Do you take your colleagues for granted? Then even if HR is the best HR in the world, what is he going to be able to do? If your boss is the best boss in the world, or if your junior is the best junior in the world, but you are taking him for granted or her for granted, or you are not treating that person nicely, or you're not appreciating that person nicely, or at the right time. So it's more an individual trait. Everything is not about intervention. It is about self-reflection also. And in fact, a lot of it is about self-reflection. What do you expect? Why are you getting frustrated? Or why are you getting upset? So first you introspect, and then accordingly work on it, because most of the time I've seen the problem lies with ourselves. Okay, I have become a much more happier man after I started accepting what are my drawbacks and how I'll work on that, rather than accepting, oh, my wife is like this, my juniors are like this, or that guy is like this, my neighbor. But they are what they are. Can we be what we want to be? So the change comes from within us. So if you want to be happier, it starts with you. If you want a better career, it starts with you. If your boss tells you late and you don't want to work late, but you do sit late and you're cribbing, you're going to be unhappy. Your boss, you agreed now. Or you tell your boss that, no, this is not what I want, so I will not do it. Then don't expect necessarily a career advancement, because it may not be in the holistic company's ethos that way. But you got what you wanted. You got to reach home on time. And then if your colleague jumps up to 2 notches, then you cannot blame and say, oh, he's working extra, so he got the job. Yeah, obviously. I mean, you decided that you want to be home at 6 o'clock, so you got what you wanted. Then you cannot crib about what somebody else got what he wanted. So I think a lot of the HR, or rather the human challenges, lie within us, and we need to first do, and automatically those problems will not be there.
I think this reminds me of a very beautiful quote I had read when I was very young. So I used to keep this book and write these quotes. And there was this one quote that said, there are only two things to aim at in life. One is to get what you want, and the second is to enjoy it. Only the wisest of people get the second. So it's
That's
like
very
you
beautiful.
said, you want to be home on time or earlier than time, spend good quality time. Then you can't. There will be trade-offs. I think the most successful people, I've yet to come across anyone who says there isn't a trade-off. It could be phase-wise even. But there's always a trade-off where some things will be a priority at some stage in life, and some other things may take priority at another stage in life. So I think that's really, really interesting. Have
That's a
you
beautiful quote.
encountered? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, it's always it's stayed with
It
me.
reminds
And
me of it reminds me of one other thing which I always believed in this philosophy, just that when you see a nice clip of someone who's already made it,
yeah,
and is still aspiring to make it, a man, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. I remember seeing one thing what he said, and we all think Amitabh Bachchan ji has made it. and yet that man feels that I still have to make it. And that's what is amazing about him, and why till his last breath he will remain that superstar, is because he himself has more aspiration out of what he was to where he wants to go. So what did he say? He said that once when I was very unhappy, and he gives a lot of anecdotes between him and his father when he was younger. And this is one of those incidences. He said that he wanted something to happen, and I think that didn't happen, or was not happening, or in the midst of it happening or not happening. And he was unhappy, and he came home, and his father told him ki beta, agar tumhara man ka ho to acha, agar agar tumhara man ka nahi ho to aur bhi acha. And what it means basically, sometimes, like you rightly said, that if you want it and you get it, good. But if you didn't get it, probably there is something more that the
Better
divine
plan.
has in thing, and every bad has a good. And it is up to us to see what that bad, how to make it good, or what was good about it, and to be happy within it. So I think your quote is also something which I will keep in
Nice.
mind, and it's a
Thank
beautiful.
you. So, I go through this. In fact, when you talk of self-reflection, it's something that I have noticed. Perhaps the younger lot, the very young lot, feels that they're naturally getting into things. So there is not enough awareness. It's just a flow. It's as you go up the ladder, some people choose to keep reflecting and evolving. But I work with so many senior people who I coach, and the biggest value that they take away is just the part of self-awareness that coaching brings about. They're like, we say things casually, we say things loosely, but when you're focused, trying to reflect and understand yourself, it's just so different. Because I think somewhere it even allows you to accept the other. When you start accepting yourself, then it starts to make it easy that you can accept the others. So I'm going to ask you something. Have you had any specific challenges that you have witnessed or experienced or even heard of, which were related to a generational diversity? And how did you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, this is a everyday challenge, especially when you work with your father and you are in a family business. Every day is a diversity challenge. And the important thing is, how do you, again, we spoke about self introspection, and how do you personally first handle it, and how then things can become it's very difficult to work. And many, I'm sure, of your viewers are working with fathers who have been self-made. See, the thing is that today's generation has been very lucky that Amazon comes to your door. Whereas at that time in the 80s, even if you had money, you had to go to 10 people's door, and then probably you got it, and that also not exactly what you wanted. A small thing like a soft drink today, which we take for granted, at that time was a treat. To give somebody a cold drink was like, अरे यार बहुत बड़ा काम किया ऐसे treat दिया, बर्थडे पे cold drink देते थे, आज बर्थडे पे the limitless हो गया है. So the easy availability definitely is not necessarily appreciated. And to an extent also, I don't necessarily say that, oh, just because my father walked 10 kilometers to school, tumko value nahi. No, we made a better life today so that our generation doesn't have to do those hardships, and they get certain things easier. So on one hand, while we work for that, it's also very important that people value things. So coming back to what we were discussing in terms of diversity, it's very important that you create that element of value. Now, how does that element of value come in? One is, while making things available, at the same time, how is it that every parent has a responsibility to create that sense of, it's not entitlement. It is that you've got this because of the values and the value, both. How would you instill, what is the value for respect of money? A lot of children today don't have the value of money. They know what is 500 rupees, but they don't know the value, that how much does someone have to work or earn, and how. Okay, even if their fathers today are multi-millionaire, he reached this level by making sure that he had the value for every rupee to save, because of which today he's able to provide so easily for his children. So one is creating values within your children and within your system. And second is basically that, what that value system will, I'll give a very, very clear example. Okay, so I used to also get very upset with my father, and I used to be like, "Arey, not he's not listening to me, and I am not doing this, and he's not doing that." But there came a time in my life, and I think everybody needs that. And I think if you read the Mahabharata and the Ramayana for the object, don't read it objectively. You read it for what the stories behind it, and it's absolutely beautiful that what it can teach you about life, management, family values, your relation with your wife, and I think when I stopped reading it for the story and start reading it for the lessons, that's when I gained personally a lot. So I'll give you an example. I used to always get upset with my, hey, this is not happening that way. Until I started and I learned one thing, which is again, which I learned from the Mahabharata basically, is basically stop, stop listening and start hearing. Don't listen to what I would stop listening. I stopped listening to what my father said. Okay. And I started hearing what he said. The difference being that I didn't go by the words, which sometimes can be harsh or sometimes can be curt or sometimes can be very over specific. And I stopped listening to him. Okay. And I started hearing what he said and said, okay, if he said do this, what he actually wants is this done. Now, me in my own abilities and capabilities, how do I get that done? And that basically led to the ultimate outcome which he wanted, which I had to do. And that basically is the biggest gap. See, my father is a successful man because of the circumstances and the way he managed his life. And that has taught him how to solve a problem based on his nature, his skill set, his gift of gab, his luck, whatever it may be. That's not necessarily my strengths. Okay. So what are my strengths? And what are the objectives that needs to be done? Using those strengths, I would get that work done. Then they asked me, did you do it this way? I said, no, I did this way. Oh, okay. And then that started building a trust factor that, okay, let me tell this boy what I want rather than what to do. As long as the work is getting done, the objective is getting done, the problem is solved. So this is one of the things which I can share. It doesn't matter whether you are even, it's not everything is about being in a family business. You as an individual also, if you stop listening to your wife and hear your wife, which is very difficult actually, because half the time I don't know what she means, but still it has helped somewhat that I hear her rather than listen to her. Though she still complains, I don't listen to her. It has helped tremendously. Okay. You might be laughing, but I'm telling you personal experience. It helps tremendously that stop listening and start hearing. And when we hear what is the thing, and in friendship also, your friend will come, and tell you something nice. And then we'll also tell something nice. That is what we're doing is listening. That person will get dejected, even though that person has told you something nice and you told something nice. Because what actually that person has come to tell you nice for is that validate why I'm feeling nice. Hear me, but don't respond. Validate. Hey, my kid got 65. If you say, oh, hey, my God got 65, that person is not, because for that person, that probably the parent didn't expect his child will get even 50 and usko 65 mila. So that child, that parent ke liye distinction hai wo. You should say, kya baat kar rahe? Arey, wow, wow, kya baat. Now, the minute you validate your friend, your relationship is going to get better only. So stop listening and start hearing.
I think that reminds me of the very common thing that many of us, I mean, maybe we've heard it from the prior generations, and I may be guilty of having said that to your generations and the younger generations, is you don't know how it was in our times. You don't know how it worked in our times, right?
I relate to those dialogues now. As a youngster, I was very upset. Now I relate because these are the kind of dialogues I want to tell certain people nowadays, but I have to restrain myself, would I control that kind of thing? Because it's not their fault that they are born in this amazing era of digital and instant, life. So, but at the same time, it's our responsibility. How do you instill those values? And that will determine ultimately how, they will grow up to. I mean, it's a very, very personal thing. It's a very individual thing. The parents should want it, the child should want it, the circumstances should be that way. A lot of things. It's not as easy as said.
So, Vishal, you said that yes, there are times you would have that certain difference of opinion with your dad. Now, I want to understand, what do you think your dad did right for you, where you felt, yes, I think he's gone out of his comfort zone and he's had to adjust, and I'm glad he did because I could thrive. And what were the adjustments you made also?
So it's not about my dad. It's about my parents. My mom has a larger role in instilling values than my father had. My family values come from my mother. My business values come from my father. So it's not fair to give him credit. or to give him only the like, it's not the plus and the minus is not his alone. It is my mother's also. And a lot of the plus which is there goes especially to my mother, who was able to instill those values. It's not about whether we could afford going by a cab or not, but we were still sent by bus. It's about us being, when we were, younger, traveling by a train or a bus, not because we could afford it or not, but because that was the values that my mother wanted to instill in us, and which made us what we are today. Okay, so creating that value within your system, within a person, within an individual, is a dual thing. It is not about a father only or a mother only, and I think a lot of that credit goes to my mother. So
So, but also then at the workplace, like, so what I want to understand is at a workplace where practices can be different, we younger people, all of us, we always have a lot of ideas that we want to put out. And then there are many ideas that may have already been experimented with. And, people would know that this isn't working, but how do we? So I want to know work wise, when you took on a bigger role and you started actively playing a role in the business, I'm sure you would have wanted to make ideas happen, decisions happen. And sometimes there could be that conflict or difference of opinion. So I want to know what from the older generations, whether it was your dad, whether it were the people who were working with him. So at a workplace, what were the adjustments that they had to make, the older generations, to make way for this new blood who's coming, and then a millennial blood who also had like his own, came with his own stereotypical perceptions and challenges, right? Millennials have got a lot of attention for being a very, very different generation than the compliant Gen X that we were, or even the baby boomers who were obviously, more silent, more doing their own thing. So I think when you came on, in terms of you then starting to take charge, what were the adjustments that the older generations made, which you
No, I
felt
have taken no
you
charge.
had to?
Firstly, let's understand that I have taken no charge. I do what is expected. I do what I expect myself, and I do what is expected of. And when you work within an organization, there is nothing like taking charge. There is about basically doing certain things. Okay, whether it is growing, whether it is administration, whether it is problem solving, there will always be someone else who you have to give charge to. Today, if you are sitting in the car, your driver is the boss. Okay, he has
Absolutely.
the steering wheel. So it's never about taking charge. You can tell the driver where you want to go. That is the only about charge that I have once I sit in the car and he's driving. After that, I'm entirely at his mercy. So it's never about charge. It's about what do you want to achieve. We want to safely reach our destination. You will have people who are lower than you, higher than you, age-wise. You will have people who are designation-wise reporting to you or your boss. So it's not about taking charge or me being that man gung ho. No, no, no. It's about what you want to achieve. And when you join your work, or whether you join your family business or whatever it may be, what is your purpose? And based on that purpose, what needs to be done?
What I want to understand from you is that groundedness that you spoke with, and the values that you said have come through, that your parents have inculcated in you. Uh, how do you ensure that even in your organization, your company culture and values, they are inclusive of people from different generations and different kinds of values, who also still are trying to follow that common vision? How do you bring that about? Because it can't, I'm sure it's not a bed of roses. Not everyone was, born to be a fighter, be resilient, be responsible. So how do you ensure that inclusivity of the values?
So while the job of HR is to groom, train, engage, your employees, it is the job of anyone senior, not management alone, to inculcate whatever is the corporate culture, the company culture. The difference that stands out between an Indian organization and an MNC is basically, especially not necessarily all MNCs. There are some European companies I know which have again a fantastic culture which stems from basically them still having a certain family managed, family owned mentality.
Right.
Okay, today when we talk about certain Indian giants, they are still, they are still basically a family run business, though the scale is in billions. And that's
Right.
where there's a lot of cultural imbibement. Aditya Birla being one of them, and your program sponsorer and this thing, being one a company like that, whether it's Aditya Birla and various other Indian mega conglomerates today, they have what is still what is very important for any organization is culture. And my job, my father's job is to imbibe the culture in our team members who then are further able to take that culture forward. And once you have a culture within the organization, when someone joins your organization who's not willing to fit into that culture or doesn't subscribe to that culture, that person automatically leaves, or that person sticks out, where then you have to see what is to be done. You cannot change someone's uh, you can change over a period of time someone's thoughts, but that's not necessarily what we're here for. Okay, we are not here to groom and train everyone. We are here to groom and train those who subscribe to the same ethos values that Kamats as a family group, as a hospitality group think. And if you are not in that sync, and you might be an excellent performer, still it's not necessary that we would have a very that person would continue, or we would see whether that person should continue or not, because the culture is very important. And once your culture is defined, automatically it makes things very easy for everything else. Today, what does our name evoke? Our name evokes trust in quality, trust that you'll come with your family. The word trust being a pivot for various other aspects is basically what Kamat stands for. And today, whether it is me as an individual, I get my respect because of my surname. My surname stands for ki, haan, ye Kamat, oh, Vishal Kamat, okay. So that aspect which is there, the day we move away from that culture, we will find us going drastically wrong. Because then we have the mismatch which we've created on our own. So culture is very important. And it's not the job of HR to do culture. It is the job of, like I said, everybody who's senior, whether he's my father, the chairman, whether it is various people at different levels in our organization, they might be just a supervisor. In fact, we have some people who are retired but are still on board. Why? Because they help continue the family culture of Kamats with the new people within the existing. And that is something which is, a pivot of ours, culture. And this is there with many other good, established, long-running family mentality businesses. They may be professional. There is a difference. Please understand, I'm not saying that professionalism doesn't mean you lose your culture. Professionalism means you will run through processes. You are, able to do things in a manner which is, friendly to your employees, friendly to your customers. But that's a professional is a way of working. But that foundation has to be the culture. I will not cheat. I will have integrity. I will have quality consciousness. I will do things which will help my environment. We are extremely environmentally conscious. From 1997, we have been Asia's first 5-star environmentally sensitive hotel, and we are the largest chain who's consistently doing it. It's not a marketing gimmick. It's our culture. So this kind of thought and ethos, when is there, that's why today our employees, when they join new, they see this and either they like it or they don't. No, I don't believe in environment. He'll leave, because either he gets exposed or he is uncomfortable. And that's basically what is, that's why today our I'm fourth generation Kamat, and I owe it all to our culture.
So how do you provide these mentorship, training, developmental opportunities that caters to the unique needs of each generation? I think you did touch upon this in the beginning. Like you said, every generation has a different need for even developing themselves. So how are you able to identify that?
So it's based on a mix of position, not necessarily their age. It's more about position rather than age, because sometimes you might have someone who's older who's joined a lower position, and somebody who might be really smart and he might be at a young age and he might be at a higher position. So it's about the person's own aptitude and attitude mix, not how much he knows and what is his drive. So I just gave a very broad general example, which is more or less see, stereotyping helps. People think stereotyping is a bad thing. No, it is bad if you act on it negatively. But if you act on it positively, it helps. Again, simple stereotype. If it's too dark and you will walk inside, that is stereotyping ki andar hoega to kuch hoega. But that saves you, right? There's nothing wrong with it. But just because if I act negatively on that, then it's wrong. So stereotyping helps you. And I always tell our staff, we must be community driven, but don't be communal. If tomorrow a Gujarati family comes to you, and though you are the world's best executive chef, and you say, "Sir, I'm going to give you lavish menu," and if you're going to give him various non-vegetarian items, you are defeating the purpose you are there for. He has not come to see how many items you can make. He has come to see that when his relations come to your Orchid Hotel for a banquet, and they are coming to judge that wedding. That time they see a lavish buffet which is vegetarian, Gujarati friendly in terms of the flavor. That time when the host they tell ki wah kya shadi kiya hai, that is what the chef's job is. To make the host proud that where I've done the food ka venue, where I've done the venue and the food and everything has made everyone go back and say kya shadi tha. Not to see what is his culinary skill, I can make what kinds of various, because that's it. What is a wedding? What is the purpose of that? It is basically to impress upon your family, to give back to society. You have gone to various people's weddings, they will come to yours. So you must see who that guy is. Same thing if he's coming for a nikah, you show your culinary where you keep the vegetarian aside, show your nalli niyari, show your other things. So unless and until you are not community driven and you don't assess your customer, how will you make him happy? So you should take, but do it positively. We go wrong when we do it negatively. People, whether it's a man or a woman, there has to be a certain level of stereotyping. It is a very wrong notion that stereotyping is bad. No, it is good. Okay. If something heavy is there, I'm not going to call two girls because they physically may not be able to. I'll call two boys. But that doesn't mean I'll tell those girls, tum log kuch kaam kar liya. It was not their job. They would not be able to help you. Now, if you act negatively on that, that's wrong. So
Right.
stereotyping is very important. It helps you make certain assessments, but you should not have negative contributions to that.
So one key advice for Gen X, since we spoke of stereotyping, so that they can excel in a multi-generational workforce.
Firstly, you tell me, define what is Gen X and all, because
Okay.
I'm not very well versed with these
Okay.
tags,
So
with these
Gen X is
jargon. Tell me
it's just
age
a
bracket
couple
of
of
what to
years
what I
older
do.
than you, just a couple of years older
Couple of
than you, all
years
the way
older
until
than
maybe
me.
50 years of age, 48
Uh,
to 50 years of age. So that's Gen X. What would you tell
oh,
them?
hey, enjoy your life. You earned it. You have come so far. Enjoy your life. Many people don't.
Great.
That's why I'm saying it.
Lovely. And what's your one key advice to millennials, people of your generation?
Like I already said, please learn to adjust, work how you can do that, learn to adjust. And while you expecting more from others, before that, expect more from yourself.
Okay, fantastic. And one key advice for the newbies, Gen Z, who are
The
latest kids on the block.
latest kids on the block. Actually, that advice also goes to the latest kids. Because that's what I wanted. I wanted to say for them only, especially that while you got all this entitlement, very important is you have to see how you are worthy of that entitlement. It's a lot of reflection, but yeah, young. They're not going to really think of it. अपन बहुत मार पीट खा के इधर पहुंचे हैं. So when we were also younger, many things we also thought were entitlements. All I can tell them is that if you work towards a higher purpose, you'll achieve it. That's what I would like to tell the very young ones, that forget all other things. If you work towards a higher purpose, you will achieve it. Important is to first come up with that purpose, have that goal, and then you will achieve it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Vishal. I think that was brilliant. I hope all of you sitting there at
Sorry
home
to spoil
and
your rapid fire because I did not know the nomenclatures. So sorry
no,
about
no,
that.
that's fine. You still gave me fairly brief answers, so those were good. And I think some really nice gems, very radical and also specific takeaways, which is how I wanted it for the audience. So thank you for making the time once again.
Thank you for having me, Vinny.
Bye.
Thank you, dear.